Are you ready for some smart, plain talk on politics, Israel, and the law? It's the Andrew Parker Show. Let's roll. Yes, it is the Andrew Parker Show, and thank you very much for joining us today. This is episode 400, and I want to talk about today the chaos that is Donald J. Trump. It has many of our colleagues, our compatriots, wringing their hands, very concerned. He is destroying America, our democracy, everything that we hold dear, according to those on the blue team, liberals, those whose religion in some respects, many respects, is the Democratic Party. And their loss of power recently is causing histrionics and grave predictions about the future because of what Donald Trump is doing, and that he is trampling on the rights of Americans, the rights of human beings who are not Americans, as well as the goodwill and good fortune of Americans, particularly those who are disadvantaged or even those who are from other countries here illegally. And when I say illegally, I mean we have laws. They're either here according to those laws or not. Whether we have enforced those laws isn't the point. Point is, when you use the word illegal, that's what you're referring to, or at least what I'm referring to. So the chaos that is Donald Trump focuses on a few aspects of life, of society, that he claims he is trying to improve, and those who are opposite him, no matter what he does or says, with great vitriol and sometimes even hate, say is destructive. And it is in certain areas, things that we all, I believe, view as important to a great society. One is wealth, or at least dealing with the scarcity of resources in a fair way. Because one thing about economics that you have to understand and put in its simplest terms, and I hope you're listening now, is that it is all the result of scarcity of resources. At the core, at its essence, if there was a never-ending source of resources and not a scarcity or a finite amount, then there would be plenty, and everyone would, it wouldn't be a zero-sum game, winners and losers. And that's what communists believe in and talk about. They talk about, well, there is a scarcity, so let's all share it equally. The problem is, if you are trying to grow an economy to make sure that you have as much as possible for everyone, including, most importantly, the lowest 25 percentile, you're not going to grow it if everybody gets the same amount no matter whether they work or not, no matter whether they pitch in or not, or no matter when they pitch in, that they do it as best as possible and, in fact, in an excellent manner versus not. Um, and that's where communism has a bit of a problem. People inherently, and some people will disagree with this, um, they will say if you don't have to work and you still get the same lot as if you work overtime and extra, you all get the same lot, you get the same amount and the same thing, then why would you work overtime and extra excellent? You might not. In fact, many say you wouldn't. And so having an incentive for human beings is an idea. It builds an overall economy. It increases it so that there is more for people to share in at the top, at the bottom, and all along the way. So, building an economy like that is something that Donald Trump is focused on in its simplest terms. If you are going to have different countries with different ideas and different ethics and moral values, of which there are many in the world, I would argue most, who have different ethics and moral values than the United States, and that they are not as good. Now, who am I to say that? Well, when somebody speaks out against the leader of a country and the next day they are disappeared and they find their head severed from their body in a river, uh, that's an ethical structure that we try not and don't live by here in the U.S. Freedom, liberty, democracy, representation, voice being heard, all of the different freedoms as well are very important and fundamental, if you will, Ten Commandment type ethics are at the foundation of our country's uh, uh, growth and at the foundation and fundamental to what we believe in and to our Constitution. So there are differences. And when we are dealing with the world, as we are, exports and imports are important. And when they are being trampled, when the playing field is we have huge costs to sell product in other countries, and they have no cost to sell product in our country and compete with our economy, it creates a very unfair system which shrinks our economy and increases our debt, a debt that we pass on to our kids. So Trump is in making changes in that. He is using the tool of tariffs, and those on the left are saying this is absolutely destructive and we're going to have huge price increases, et cetera, and they're pounding the table. We haven't seen that yet. That's their prediction. But these are the same people that had no problem pouring trillions of dollars into the economy at a time where it was predicted there would be major inflation, and sure enough, that occurred. Why did it occur? Because every single time that has happened in history, it has occurred. So were we shocked that it's occurred? No, we shouldn't be shocked. We should have expected it. Now, what they're saying here is that the application of these tariffs have always caused increase in pricing here and costs. And that is an enormous tax on the poorest among us. And it's wrong. It's unethical, immoral, etc. Um, but the fact of the matter, if used appropriately, tariffs can be implemented and at least threatened uh, in a way that does not have that result. So we'll see. Is it create an unpredictable economy that causes businesses to stand on the sideline and maybe not invest because they're not certain what's going to happen? Does it create volatility in markets? Yes, we've seen that. But let's let things shake out. Remember, critically, the country is headed in a direction that the people do not like, and who would? And I would argue it has been on a crescendo path in the wrong direction since 2008, 17 years ago. And we have had Democratic liberal rule during the vast majority of those years. The one time where the economy started, at least the economy started to pull out of it, was during the 3 years of Donald Trump. And I exclude the fourth year because it was COVID and it was an anomaly and an exceptional year. So why do I say headed in a troubling direction? Well, we need to have a strong economy vis-a-vis the world and vis-a-vis our population here. Creating wealth in the United States, not at the detriment of others, but in a fair economy, world economy, is a valuable goal, objective. It's good for our people. It's good for the poorest among us. And if you're looking to eradicate poverty, which is one of the goals which we should always be striving for, that I believe in to the nth degree, this set of policies that Donald Trump is implementing, despite the fact that it creates chaos in the short term, let's just see. Let's wait it out, because I predict it's going to work. And it's not because I love Donald Trump and he's fabulous and whatever he does, I love. No, I analyze things on their own merits. And I predict this, regardless of who would have implemented it, is going to or could work. And I believe it will. And again, it's not because it's a Trump idea. This, along with the cutting of taxes, along with getting government out of our lives, it is so bloated. The government is so bloated right now. We're going to do an episode on Trump-usk. Trump without the P, U-S-K. Trump and Musk. And what are they doing? Yes, they're creating chaos in the public sector. But I think it's about time. And this isn't a scalpel. This isn't some little incremental move. The government and what we expect of the government has become so overblown, so bloated. And I'll tell you why it is that the government breaks down our economy. It doesn't help our economy. Listen, when I got my degree, not my law degree, but my degree in public policy from the Humphrey Institute here in Minnesota, and it was a fascinating set of studies, really. One of the most interesting courses was on social policy and government interface with social policy. and the development by the government of social policy, taught by John Brandl, a one-time legislator at in Minnesota legislature, a leader, an icon, really, in the Democratic Party. He was a Democrat, and very bright guy. He taught social policy and an entire segment on government failure. And I will never forget that course and the study of government failure versus private sector delivery of programming, all kinds of programs, and why it is that government delivery of programs to people fail 9 times out of 10 in comparison to private sector delivery of programs to people. The market structure of incentives doesn't exist with the public sector. And so it undermines the efficiency of the public sector delivering that program. Do you understand? You see, those that are making decisions on delivery of a program in the public sector, number one, as long as their budget exists and they can continue, which they attempt to do year in, year out, to grow their budget, that's their goal. Grow the budget, not create efficiency in your program, not improve the program for delivery. Maybe those things sometimes pop in, but there aren't incentives for it. The incentive is to grow your budget, increase your programming, increase the size of your department as much as possible. It gives you more authority, more power. It makes sure that you are around and that you keep your job forever. And those are the personal incentives of the department head for particular programs. That's not the case in the private sector. If you are not driven by efficiency and effectiveness, where people continue to use your product or your program or your service because it's good, and by the way, if it isn't, they won't use it because it's good, then you're going to succeed and survive. So efficiency and effectiveness drive success in the private sector. It's the opposite in the public sector. And what do you think happens? And John Brandl taught this about government failure. You have the government handle a program, and let's say the government needs to cut 10% across the board. And this has happened where they say, we have to cut. We can't balance our budget. Nowadays in Washington, they don't even care, and they haven't for decades. They don't care about balancing the budget. They just print more money and put our kids more and more behind the 8 ball with an enormous, impossible debt to pay off. They do not care. Rather than going to all these government programs and saying, cut 10%, because we can't balance the budget otherwise. We can't balance our checkbook. When they go in the public sector to say cut 10%, what do you think that department head does? They cut the 10% that is the most essential, not the waste. It would be, frankly, easy to find waste at 10% of every government program. Why? Because of what I just said. Efficiency and effectiveness are out the window. Now, again, to be fair, that isn't always the case because, people are good, and so they want to do good. And so, it's not about growing their budget at the expense of efficiency and effectiveness of the program. They believe in their program, and and there are cases like that. But you're giving people a lot of credit, and there have been study upon study that have been done in the public sector where when you're asked to cut 10%, You cut the most important 10% of your program, and then you go back to the politicians and say, okay, you wanted me to cut 10%. Here it is. It guts the entire program. That's it. You're done. It's kind of like Social Security and Medicare and some of these other programs. Cut 10%. Oh, you're going to cut Social Security. It's going to gut. Nobody will get any money. You're cutting out the guys that have been working their whole lives. They're now 70 years old, and you're undermining. No, it doesn't have to go in order to eliminate the waste and fraud that is in there. You could do 10%. You could do probably more than that. But the hue and cry from the Democrats, because they want to keep power, is, oh, you're going to cut Social, you're going to destroy it. So that's what happens in the public sector when the department head is told, we need to cut 10% across the board. They come back and they say, okay, this is a public safety program, that has community liaisons. And so the only way to cut 10% is to reduce the number of community liaisons, which means there are going to be a number of regions in the city that are not going to have any community liaisons at all. They're going to be cut completely out. 10% of them are going to be cut. 10% of 100, that means 10 stations are going to be eliminated, and there won't be any protection in those areas. No eyeballs watching public safety in those areas. Well, wait a minute. Aren't there other ways? This program has gotten monetary increases for the last 20 years. Every year, every annual budget, you get an increase. And what have you been doing with all of that? Is it well? So it just gives you an idea of government failure and why it is that the bloated federal government that we now have can be reduced without anyone feeling it at all, other than those public sector employees are going to need to go find other jobs. And if you're talking about reducing in order to take care of and eradicate poverty, oh, what do you mean eradicate? What does this have to do with eradicating poverty? Well, a sluggish economy hurts those at the bottom worse than anyone. And a sluggish economy is created by inefficiency and ineffectiveness. And when the greater part of the economy is driven by the public sector with all of that government failure, rather than the private sector, you have a more sluggish economy. We don't want that. We want to grow the economy so that more people can enjoy the fruits of that economy. And I'm talking about the lowest 25%. And how do we know that works? Because the Donald Trump first term, those 3 years, during that time, go back and look at it, and you will see that real wage rates, that's including inflation, it's including time value of money, real wage rates, including taxes and everything taken out, et cetera, of the lowest 25%, rose more than at any time since it was recorded. And that is, monumental. A large part of it was because of tax policy, but another large part of it was because of getting rid of regulations, limiting and reducing the amount that the government was in our lives and was in, more importantly, private sector business lives, allowing the economy unbridled to operate in the free market system that we know of. So that's about the economy. And for me, economic health of the U.S. economy is the way to fight poverty. is the way to eradicate differences that exist along racial or identity lines, minority or disadvantaged lines, and to rise up those in that lowest 25 percentile. That is my focus of what are the best policies to do that. Because we've been trying to fight poverty for more than 60 years since LBJ announced the quote-unquote war on poverty. You remember that? How are we doing in that war? How are we doing? And I'm talking Democrat and Republican administrations alike, but mostly Democrat, because they just want to throw money at the issue. Have a sluggish and even more sluggish economy, a shrinking economy, and expect to improve the lot for the poorest among us by printing money, causing inflation, which has the most detrimental impact on the most disadvantaged among us. It is a ridiculously, just analyzing it on its merits, you can see whether it's the blue team or the red team promoting it. I don't care. Just analyzing it on its merits. It's bad policy and it hurts people. So when focusing on eradicating poverty, what we need to do is have smaller government, lowest taxes that we can to still operate the things that are critical for the government to operate, and there are some. But get the government out of the way, regulate when needed, and there are times where it is absolutely needed. Abuses of the free market system must be regulated, and they do happen. Greed drives problems. And the Republicans need to recognize that. Sometimes regulation is required and needed. But you get the government out of the way, and it's going to have a much stronger impact on eradicating poverty than what we've been doing for the last 60 years. And it's like where we sit today, and it's why people at their core, and they may not even be thinking about it this way, but it seems to me that's where they're going. They're saying we're headed in the wrong direction with this bloated Jabba the Hutt economy or government. The government is like Jabba the Hutt, sitting back, bloated, overweight, and inefficient, ineffective slumber. Well, it's going to take a tectonic shift to move us from the direction we've been in for decades. And that's what Donald Trump is doing. It's not going to be comfortable. It may create chaos for a while. We may have to survive through that for a while. But on its merits, it makes sense. And with a larger economy and building up the private sector rather than the public sector, there will be, and there are, jobs for these public sector employees who need to shift and move over. The real harm, which we were all sleeping on and we should have been yelling about, was the constant growth year in, year out since Ronald Reagan of the U.S. economy and of the number of public sector jobs, ridiculous amounts. And now, a word from our sponsors. A record of success second to none. Parker Daniels Keyboard Law Firm, the numbers tell the story. The last 5 cases our lawyers have brought to trial have resulted in million and multi-million dollar verdicts for our plaintiff clients and zero defense verdicts for our defense clients. Put simply, we try cases and we win cases. Hi, I'm Andrew Parker. At Parker Daniels Keyboard, we take our work personally and we go the extra mile. That is why some of the biggest law firms, locally and nationally, send cases to us to handle when they can't. If you have a challenging and critically important business or personal legal dispute that must be favorably resolved, whether regarding a contract matter, a business divorce, a real estate dispute, an employment dispute, a civil rights or defamation matter, plain talk, if it's a big deal, contact us at Parker Daniels Keyboard. Wise counsel, winning results. Go to parkerdk.com. If you're considering options for a 1031 exchange, True North recommends checking out Walton Global. They're a land investment company with over 46 years of experience and a very impressive track record. Their clients are some of America's largest home builders, and True North recommends them highly. You can visit True North's website to get more information at investtruenorth.com or call at 619-455-0275. That's 619-455-0275. The next area of chaos is safety and security. Local safety and security. Look at 2020, the summer of 2020, and the chaos here in the city of Minneapolis, which we still haven't come out of, and we may never with the city council that we have here in Minneapolis. The craziness of getting rid of law enforcement, of reducing their ability to do what they need to do, acting as if there is no evil, there is no public safety issue. No. There's Yetzer Hara and Yetzer Tov. There is good inclination every person has to do good. But every person has the potential for doing evil as well. And having come back from Dachau, if you watched recent episodes of the Andrew Parker Show, you see that. You should go take a look at episode, I can't remember, 396, I believe, plus or minus. And you'll see my trip to Dachau. This is human being to human being, the evil, heinous acts that people can perpetrate on another. And we see it every day. I live downtown. The sirens are going off every day. So don't tell me that, there isn't a need for police and police are bad and terrible. And they're all of a sudden they got bad. Yeah, there are some bad apples. No question. And we have a justice system that deals with them. But to say that local safety and security can be eradicated and we don't need police, or we should allow the burning of the 3rd precinct here in Minneapolis, no big deal. It's not symbolic at all. Really? I mean, shocking. The governor allowed that. The mayor allowed that. Shocking, really. I don't think in retrospect either of them would say that was their finest moment. I know Jacob Fry wouldn't say that, I don't believe. I don't know about Tim Walz. He may think it was. It's outrageous, though. Along with safety and security, what about national immigration policy? That involves safety and security. Now, much like what I was talking about with the growth of our economy and the fact that year in, year out, it got a little bigger, then now we're Jabba the Hutt. That wasn't so much the case on immigration. It was such an avalanche of people, particularly during Joe Biden's years. But also with Barack Obama, though he did deportations too. Joe Biden, it was just A party every day. Let's go across the border. And it was in our face where you couldn't miss it. And people were going, "What the heck?" And the Democratic Party supported this under the guise, and I say they may think that the merits of an open border policy outweigh the destructive nature of closing the border and not letting these innocent, wonderful people into our country. Now, they don't know whether they're innocent and wonderful because there is nothing that checks on it. We don't know who's coming in. What we do know is many of them committed crimes in this country, so they're not so wonderful. And even if by percentage it wasn't, quote unquote, a large percentage or many, if it's your daughter that's murdered, you might have a different view than, well, there's a few bad apples. We just have to deal with it because we're going to just let people in without. I mean, that is not safety and security. Forgetting about even bringing up fentanyl and the drugs and the human trafficking. And so the blue team got thrown out in large part because of that issue. And that is a safety and security issue. And Donald Trump is changing it. He is changing it at the local level. He is changing it at the national borders. He is changing it in terms of trying to turn back the clock to when millions came in unvetted. And that's deportations. And it causes a lot of angst of people. But you can't say, yeah, we let them all in, and now that they're here, you can't get rid of them because they're all here now. And so you really. So that creates, a little bit discomfort and frankly, unease and chaos. And what about foreign policy? He's had to take over from the weak-kneed Joe Biden. Trump claims that if he were president during the last 4 years, the burning fires of war in the world would not be going on. Maybe that's true, maybe it isn't. But what's he doing with those? He is speaking with strength. He is trying to negotiate because he is not one who ran on getting involved in interminable wars around the world, indefinite lengths of time into wars. He didn't. So he is negotiating, trying to do deals, but he is very clear on a policy of negotiation, and that is, in one hand, let's talk, and in the other hand, we have missiles aimed at you that you have never seen before. So those are the alternatives. And this is the kind of diplomacy that doesn't happen with Barack Obama. It doesn't happen with Joe Biden at all. It didn't even happen with Bill Clinton, although a bit more. But with Donald Trump, it does. Peace through strength. We've learned how that can work. Ronald Reagan. But even Ronald Reagan did not carry the weapon in that right arm as the alternative as strongly as Donald Trump does. And because he is unpredictable, it adds to the value of his words in terms of a deterrent. And so safety and security may feel chaotic, but if you analyze the policy and his approach on its merits, I would, if you disagree, let us know. Go to theandrewparkershow.com. Jot down the number there and text or send an email. And by the way, go to YouTube and follow us and subscribe. But these policies make sense. And then what about making America healthy again? Well, it's chaos. It's going to cause, unbelievable food disruption. And it's dangerous. People are going to start dropping dead in the street because he's ripping apart a system that's been in place for decades. And we have the healthiest, population in the world. Really? No, we don't. Autism is off the charts of recent. Why? Obesity is outrageous here in the United States. Why? Other countries are advanced well beyond us. Somebody's making a ton of money. And we're sitting here with an unhealthy population. Now, I would say the private sector medical system is far better than the public sector medical system because of the government failure concepts that I laid out earlier on this episode. No question. And like in education, where we need more competition, we ought to be developing a medical system that everyone has access to, but is driven by a competitive structure that is regulated at a level of health that makes us the best in the world. But if you need only look, and again, another policy you assess on the merits. It's not based on who came up with it. If this was a democratic idea, I would love it and embrace it. Because making our population healthier, not by increasing the number of drugs and making us a drug-addled society, which is what we are. You need only watch TV for an hour to know it. Well, what do you mean? What do you mean by that? Well, turn on the TV for an hour. 50% of the commercials are about pills or medical pharmacies. That's what it is. A pharmaceutical society it has become. When did that start happening? I started noticing it a few years ago, but it started long before that. Taken over for cigarettes and cigarette commercials, which when I was growing up were all over the TV, the airwaves. Now it's drugs. It's the pharmaceutical companies. And they try, they've got this wonderful smiling at the pond out in nature, and everything's wonderful, and all the people are running around. It looks like they're all on Prozac or something. Not to say that being on Prozac is a bad thing. It can be a good thing, no doubt about it. But they're on pills that, just makes everybody happy, and it's all wonderful. But, if you look at it, you go, what the heck kind of commercial is this? And sure enough, 9 times out of 10, it's a pharmaceutical commercial. I mean, Lilly has these commercials where you would never know, and then they put up, Lilly on the, and there they are. So we've become a pill-addled society and a much unhealthier society, and somebody's making a lot of money. But if you look at it on the merits, we are more unhealthy. And we shouldn't accept that. There is little more important than health. I would argue it's more important, and I feel this strongly, not just argue it, who could disagree, than wealth. Wealth doesn't buy health. It should be a number one priority, right there with safety and security. But we have ignored it. Oh, no, what do you mean? We have the FDA and we have all these government institutions that protect against, yeah. And half of them who leave the government institution get jobs at these enormous pharmaceutical companies and come back with their relationships and, say, oh, we got to put this out on the market and we've got to put that out on the market and let's move quickly to get this and that. And what do you mean? We have science behind all of these studies, is the argument on the other side. We don't allow anything that hasn't been studied upon studied upon studied, and it all works and everybody's doing great. And really, well, they're not doing that in other societies and they're healthier than we are. And you just have to look at the numbers. So we're doing something wrong. And I say a fresh look from a Robert F. Kennedy, who people claim is a crackpot, and maybe some of his ideas are beyond the pale. I don't know. I haven't looked closely at him, but he's looking at it from a different perspective. That we know for sure. So we have to assess it on the merits, not on the fact that he is the messenger, and we don't like him. He is the messenger because, he interfered with what we wanted to do on COVID, shut down the world. And the vaccines, we wanted to sell vaccines to every person. Everybody has to take them. We're just putting it out there. Take it. We'll deal with what the long-term impacts are later. Because, we got this pandemic and we don't know, people are dying. And yeah, there are arguments on both sides of that equation, but Robert F. Kennedy was saying, wait a minute, let's look at this on its merits. And that's what he is trying to do. After all, he's a Kennedy. Blue team. They're eating one of their own. All right, so we've talked about wealth and increasing for the most disadvantaged, eradicating poverty. Talked about safety and security. We talked about health. All chaos policies that Donald Trump is delivering on. And what about loving thy neighbor? Can't we love our fellow? Why are we so polar? Why do we need to be? Well, go back once again to Barack Obama, who poured gasoline on the polarization of this country by putting on steroids identity politics. Oh, you're a white male. You must think this. Oh, you're a black female. All right, you're in this camp over here. It doesn't matter what you actually think. You are identified by what you look like. And that tells us who you are. Somebody walks into your office. They're overweight. They don't care about what they're disheveled. You pass judgment on that. Oh, this person must, feel badly about this or not be happy with it. And this sort of polarization and identity politics was put on steroids when DEI came out, when this separation based upon what you look like, the color of your skin rather than the content of your character. And that's a big mistake. And Donald Trump is taking a sledgehammer to it. Is it going to create discord and angst? Yeah, maybe for a while, but we were headed in a direction that people, 77.5 million almost, voted change. This is crazy. Goes along with it is, the men are women, women are men, there's something in between. I respect and give rights to people to be who they are. That does not mean that we ignore what that is. It's kind of like, and this is an analogy, totally separate, but when there was terrorism and people were being blown up, the Obama administration didn't want to call it that. And they used and twisted themselves up in knots trying not to use the term. That was dangerous. So maybe we can get back to loving thy neighbor. Love your fellow. Yeah. And lastly, education. Donald Trump hasn't done much in this area specifically. And by the way, before I move on to love thy neighbor, anti-Semitism on college campuses and universities and the destruction of that, which if it were the KKK out in force throughout black communities in this country, there would be no question that they would be shut down entirely. They would be destroyed. They would be jailed. It would be over. Why is that not happening? Why is the Democratic Party wringing their hands? Oh, what do we do? What do we do? Now, I'm not going to go as far as to say they support it, but they're going, oh, well, there are exceptions. No, there aren't. No, there aren't. This is not freedom of speech when it goes to the point where it's gone. There is a way to deliver it on freedom of speech, but that is not where we're at. This is not a Wall Street encampment like occurred for a year where people pitched their tents down on Wall Street to protest the money being made there. I can't remember what, write into me and tell me what that movement was again. I can't remember. It was 20 years ago now. It lasted 6, 8, 10 months. You thought it would never go away, but it did. But that was like, innocent encampments. It wasn't, covering your face and brutalizing someone or preventing someone from getting in to a classroom or having loud chants that interfered with classes and policy and just spewing hatred, inciting violence. So it's reached that level. That goes into the category of loving thy neighbor. That just, we need clarity on that. No, we're not going to allow it here. It's like we're not going to allow the KKK to, burn crosses. All right. Education is the last item, and we need to start teaching civics. Don't you think? I worry. We have whole generations that we're raising who hate this country. I worry. What happened to pride? What happened to understanding that with all of our faults and inability to achieve what we want to achieve, at the core, the American experiment and what our founding fathers laid out is like nothing that has ever come before. And we have the ability to take this, if we really defend it, and view policies on their merits, not on who's delivering it, because they're on the other team. Civics being taught in our schools to bring pride back because it deserves to come back. America should be proud of what we stand for. Is so important. And that's why a shrunken Department of Education, but also one that is driving back to those fundamentals, is so important. Well, I will tell you that the drum roll is for the end of this episode. It has been wonderful to be with you. Go with sensibility, go with assessment and analysis on the merits. Think it through from both sides as we talk the great debate and talk politics, Israel, and the law each episode of The Andrew Parker Show. And go to our website, The Andrew Parker Show. Subscribe. Jot down the number. text us. Let us know how you like shows or what episode you want to see coming up. And also go to YouTube. Subscribe, follow us. Never miss an episode. Until next time, be kind to your neighbor. For more Smart Plain Talk, go to theandrewparkershow.com. Learn about all of your listening and viewing options. And remember, all the great things are simple, and many can be expressed in a single word: freedom, justice, honor, duty, mercy, hope. This episode of The Andrew Parker Show is sponsored by Parker Daniels Keyboard and True North Private Investments.
Did your employer make you sign a promissory note when joining the company, and now you want to leave, but you're afraid your firm will pursue you personally for that debt? This is Jesse Keyboard from the law firm Parker Daniels Keyboard. I recently represented a client who had signed such a note, and I was able to get them out of their $500,000 debt to their company, which allowed them the freedom to exit a bad employment situation and enter a much better one. Meeting our clients' objectives is our focus at Parker Daniels Keyboard, and in this regard, we win. Our experienced trial team of lawyers at Parker Daniels Keyboard have secured major victories in state and federal courts across the country and through arbitration. We have the legal expertise in all types of business disputes, labor and employment matters, real estate matters, shareholder disputes, financial transactions, security issues, and appeals. For wise counsel, winning results, contact us at Parker Daniels Keyboard, a premier litigation law firm that provides efficient, aggressive, and innovative solutions to complex legal problems. Wise counsel, winning results. Go to parkerdk.com.
Are you a high-income earner or a business owner looking to secure your financial future? At True North Private Investments, they focus on helping you break free from the limitations of traditional investments. Diversify your portfolio with private equity, real estate, and credit opportunities built to thrive in any market condition. Plus, their tailored tax strategies are designed to help you keep more of what you've earned. Your success deserves a smarter approach. Choose True North to grow, protect, and optimize your wealth. Call them today at 619-455-0275 or visit investtruenorth.com.